I'm going to talk a little bit about some stuff we've been working on and that we're showing today, and this idea of project to product. I'm now CEO of a company, and we have like 350 people, and we make 3D printers here in Brooklyn, well, not down there in Brooklyn, and if you had, 6-7 years ago, I was a school teacher. Woo! And that's a round of applause for any school teacher. And I got a bee in my bonnet, I started making videos for my students, and I started making videos for the internet, a little bit bigger classroom, and then needed to be able to make stuff. So I rallied a bunch of folks together, and we started NYC Resistor, where we wanted to make anything. And of course, we needed a 3D printer, and we couldn't afford one, so we had to make one. So let's see if my clicker works. Let me get a new clicker. Ooh, that's fun. So we started out making a machine for ourselves, and when it worked, we made more for other people, and then we got swamped with demand. And now this is our 4th generation machine. We made it for professionals. And in fact, NASA, JPL, Lockheed Martin, GE, all these kind of places use them to do real prototyping of insanely cool stuff and like next generation space flight, which just gives me it makes me happy. It's been a really wild ride. We just keep trying to keep up with people wanting these things and trying to make it interesting. And we're really proud of this machine. And it's one of the things you'll notice about it is it's very iconic. We made a real strong choice to make it look great on your desk. So it's got enough LEDs in it to blind the small kitten. And it's just we focused on making it easy to use. We've updated the firmware 3 times this year, improved the software 3 times this year, and we're just going to keep making it easier, more friendly, and more fun to use. I kind of already talked about this. This is the slide that I should have shown when I was talking about all the people using it. This is John Camp, and they actually did a really cool project where they used MakerBots to fix the next generation space telescope. They had it in a cryo chamber. There's a problem with it. They had to fix it, so they actually made a replica of the space telescope on their MakerBot replicator too, and then made all the parts that they were going to have, the baffles that they were going to make to fix it on their MakerBot replicator too, and then they practiced for like a month. Basically, it was like surgery with like little cameras that had little Flexa cameras in there, doing all this stuff on this really cool space exploration vehicle. And then when it came out of the cryo chamber, because they did all this testing and like as close to 0 Kelvin as possible. They'd been practicing for a month. It took like 10 minutes to do it. But because they were able to do that, they saved like 6 months, which for Lockheed Martin is a lot. This is what I showed people in March. And the MakerBot Digitizer project really started about 2 years ago. I wanted a 3D scanner to go along with the MakerBot 3D printers. And I looked around at everything, and it was all garbage. It was one of those things where, there are really awesome 3D scanners for like boats, but they're like tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they only work on boats. So there were all these application-specific scanners for the automotive industry and stuff like that. And we just wanted stuff that would scan stuff that we could make on our MakerBot. And so we went down that road and we chose laser scan, which basically means you point lasers at it and take a bunch of pictures, and you use that laser line to create a point cloud and then mesh it. And it's interesting. I was just up talking to Jerry Ellsworth and her partner, and watched them get into a little argument about which is more important, hardware or software. And it's an interesting battle. But in this case, the hardware is pretty straightforward. We really, because we've been making 3D printers for so long, we've in many ways really perfected the ability to make professional quality, prosumer level 3D printers. We're able to bring that to this machine, and we wanted to make it fast. We wanted it to make it easy, we made it friendly, and really integrate well with your life. And we went through a process of really, we've got two really awesome industrial designers, and they go back and forth in battle. And we end up, you can kind of see the progression of where we've done. And we eat our own dog food. We prototyped these with MakerBots and looked at them. This is one of the earlier ones. But when you do this, you really get to see what things look like, and whether or not you're comfortable with the proportions and everything. We obsess over all the small parts. And we used, even when we were done and we wanted to modify them, we used MakerBots to modify them and improve them. So what you can go see over in our booth here is the MakerBot digitizer. And we're just so proud of it. We've been working for about 2 years on this, and we finally get to let you get your mitts on it. And it's awesome. We started Thingiverse about 5 years ago, almost 5 years exactly. And I've made about 100 designs and uploaded them to Thingiverse in those 5 years. Some of them 3D printers, some of them other stuff. But I've had the MakerBot digitizer in my office going through using the alpha software. And because you just put something on this turntable and it turns around, lasers shoot at it and makes a model, and that's all automated, I've added like another 50 things just in the last 2 weeks because it's so easy to make models. For animators, that means that you're going to be able to sculpt things out of old school materials like clay and plastiline, and you could even carve things out of wood, put them on here, and turn them into digital designs. For some people, that'll be enough. They'll take that digital design, they'll 3D print it, or maybe they'll put it into a video game or something like that, using that digital design. For other people, they're going to use tools like Mesh Mixer, which Mesh Mixer 2.0 just came out last night. Free software that's a really great modifying tool. So like, if you want to add more beer to your gnome, you can. Celebrate. So this idea of making it really fast and easy and seamless, it really matters. Having been somebody who's installed things from the command line, and you can blame MakerBot for years of replicator G development. We really made it. We really realized how important it was to make it easy to use. So when you open up the software, you literally you have 3 choices. It's either going to be light, medium, or dark. And that's kind of what the color of the object is. And then you press, that's the one button you push, then the second button you press is scan, and it begins. Output's a standard STL file, and yeah, you can modify it, you can multiply it. I like it. More beer, that's a theme today. And this whole idea of, when you're done scanning it, it says, hey, you're done, check it out. And it lets you actually crop it if you have to chop your gnome's head off or whatever you want to do. And hopefully you don't want to do that. And then you can just upload it to Thingiverse, you can share it out on your social networks and tell the world what you're doing. Oh, awesome. It is my day. It broke. Yeah, so it's got that big thing over there. It should make that noise every time I enter it. Moving right along. One of the things that this does is it makes models that have about 200,000 polygons. They end up being like 10 to 14 megabyte files. And it's, one of the things that with the digitizer is you do have a little bit of loss. It's kind of like a photocopier in that way. When you take a photo and you make a photocopy of it, it's not exactly the same. It's close. And I'm actually looking forward to when people get their hands on it and they have something and they scan it and then they print it and then they scan that 3D print and then scan that 3D print and eventually it turns into a blob or something. I want to see that happen. Tom Burton has been talking about that actually. I should give him credit for that. Is he in the audience? Oh, you'll see him around. He's very tall. So this is the Stanford bunny. There's a funny story behind this. The Stanford bunny was Stanford like 25 years ago. A researcher at Stanford went to probably a garden shop and bought like a little ceramic bunny. And they proceeded to scan it with what at the time was absurdly expensive and complicated and challenging laser scanner that probably similar to a MakerBot digitizer. And it made a huge polygon model in 9 megabytes or something. And I've been searching on eBay for like 4 years for a Stanford bunny, like the original one. Because now all we could do is we would have to print one out and then scan it. And I really wanted to get an original one so we could scan it. So I finally found one and it's like, okay, scan it. I tell my team, you can scan this, but don't break it. Cats. So the things we learned in this process is how important it is to use great tools. And in many cases, the tool you know how to use is the best one. And one of our designers, our designers use all sorts of tools to design things. So there's the 1, 2, 3D suite of stuff, and check out the Mesh Mixer stuff that they dropped last night is very cool. I'm actually looking forward to digging into that. So just get into it, use what you've got, get started, and that's important to use good tools when you make stuff. One of the things about, even though this is our first desktop 3D scanner, in theory, if it sells, we'll theoretically do more, I suppose. But we ended up being able to leverage all the experience of the last 4 generations of MakerBot desktop 3D printers for this desktop scanner. So it's one of those things where we got to, we'd already shot ourselves in the foot a couple times, and we've got nice holes where we can shoot right through those same holes again, it doesn't hurt. And we made when we started with MakerBot, we used laser cutting, and you'll see a lot of cool laser cut things here at Faire, and it's really awesome until you get to about 5 or 10,000 items that you have to make, and you hit scale challenges at some point. But we've abused an epilogue laser for years. But now we're doing injection molding, and it's one of those things we can only do it because we know we're going to sell tens of thousands. Well, we hope we're going to sell tons of thousands of these, because otherwise the tooling kits would be like $10,000 per machine. Yeah, there's a lot of when you go big, it's this thing of like, okay, today in the near future. So then it all looks good together. So I got a little distracted getting in and out, but I'm at the end, and I'm way ahead of schedule. I've got about 10 minutes to answer questions. So this is great. Any questions from the audience? Yes?
So you mentioned that there is some loss of detail in the 3D scanner.
That's right.
Do you have any options, either in the software or to, spin it slower, or have a larger file, or have more accuracy in the scan? No, we're at the limit of the technology actually. So we made it as slow as we pushed that to the edge, and we're like, if we made it slower, would it be better? And we got to the point where the answer is no. So it makes a model of about 200,000 polygons, and you'll see that that's pretty good. On the gnome, the original gnome that we designed and then printed and then scanned, you'll see like you lose a little bit of like the crease detail on the beard, and if you needed to go in and put that back in there, it would just take you a few minutes. So in many ways, we got to the point where we were like, we can't really do this any better without charging people an extra $10,000. And so there's sort of a, in many cases, most people don't need that. If you did, you could go in and do the post-processing.
Yes, sir. Yep. So the question was, this is a good question for this room actually, was we used to be in a cave, and now we just merged with a company called Stratasys. So it's interesting, you know, one of the things that happened with MakerBot, this is pre-Kickstarter, we took some funding from some friends, and then we took angel funding, and then eventually we ended up running the company with about $11.2 million of capital. And when you take money from somebody else, you have your integrity is really on the line to give them back at least that much. And so when you take money from somebody, there's really three options. Either you fail and you pack it in, or you sell the company or merge like we did. And then or you go public. And in theory, we could have gone public, but what ended up happening is we ended up meeting the crew at Stratasys. And, you know, it's actually been nice. There aren't that many people you can talk to about the level of 3D printing that we do with people who obsess about internal nozzle geometries and stuff. You know, we met them and we just basically liked them as part of it. You know, it made sense from a business perspective, yada, 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 but then when it got down to it, we knew we could actually do more with it. And, you know, we've been working around their patents for years. And so we really put a lot of work into making sure we didn't infringe. And a lot of money goes into that, actually. It's a whole infrastructure that's right kind of floating above the Makerspace, is that there's this whole world of patents. And yeah, it sucks, but it's actually the world that floats when you get to scale. So we had to, you know, spend a lot of money in that space, making sure that we were safe. And now actually, you know, the patents we were all working around, now we're part of that company. So we get to the kids at the candy store now. So there was that too. And then it's kind of like grandpa, they had a MakerBot-sized hole in their company, and they're sort of the grandparents of the space. They've been doing it for 25 years, even more, 26, 88, 87, somewhere like that. So I will say that, you know, it's one of those things, like, I'm actually bound by SEC guidelines now. Like, I'm not allowed to make any forward-thinking statements, officially, or I could go to jail. So there's stuff like that. There's a whole new level of responsibility, because now I'm not just beholden to my investors, I'm beholden to the public. And so it's only slightly more stressful than being beholden to your investors and actually your users. Doing good by your users is probably the most stressful, or the most important. So, does that answer your question? Cool. So I think that's probably actually a good thing. Because I bet you, I don't know if I can bet you, but I would guess that there's probably somewhere between 2 and 20 companies in this room that either are in the background of a small child that just hasn't figured it out yet, or something emerging from a hackerspace, or a project that somebody's doing that they did on the weekend, and then all of a sudden they're finding that it's really popular and they have to start a business. I'm guessing that actually there'll be people who come and kind of go through the same routine that I've been through. And if you do get to scale, shoot me an email and I'll see if I can help you avoid shooting some holes in your feet. Next question. Yeah, down here in the front.
How do you feel about this one maker movement integrating into curriculums, into educational types of college level? A lot of colleges are talking about developing makerspaces and integrating this into their design, tutoring, curriculum that they're thinking about.
So I'm going to resist going on my educational rant because we've only got a few minutes. But we have to we as a culture have decided collectively that our children are our lowest priority, and that teachers are our next lowest priority. And goodness gracious, we've got to do something to make education relevant, or we're all sunk. And I think a good part of that is getting young people access to tools so that they can do things that are important and relevant to their lives, not just get ready for a test.